Today on Pat's Car Garage, I finally decided to pull the plug and try out some LED light bulbs for my Jeep. So these are the H4 bulbs by Philips. So in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to review them, we're going to take a look at them, maybe do some measurements, do a comparison with Sylvania ZXE halogen bulbs, and we'll see exactly how they stack up. We're also going to take a look at how bright they are and if they do any glare, and that type of questions I'm going to try to answer with this video. So basically, I hesitated a long time to get LED light bulbs because frankly I hate them. Like the cheap ones, they throw glare all over the place, they're not all that bright, overall they're really garbage products. However, when Philips came out with this, I got intrigued because they're a decent brand, so maybe these are worth a shot. So before I unbox these, just a quick note, there's a lot of counterfeit going around with these. So Philips, when you buy an original set, they'll have a QR code here that you can scan, and with the help of the Philips website, you can determine whether they are legit or not. So keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and open up the box and see what we have in here. So the packaging is obviously quite lovely, as you'd expect from a high quality brand like Philips. Let's pull that out of here. Okay, so we have the two light bulbs right over here. Inside the box we have the little LED modules. I'm not sure what these do yet. One of the things I'll try to do is see if they flicker under. Some cars use the high beams as daytime running lights. We'll see if these cancel out the flicker or not. So we have two of these little modules, and we also have a couple of zip ties. Now let's take a look at the bulbs themselves real quick. They're quite stiff in the packaging, which is good, which means they'll be protected during shipping. Let's get the little pigtail out of here. Okay, there you go. So here, as you can tell, right, this is the heatsink, which unscrews. So I believe you're supposed to take this off for installation. Yeah, so you probably take this off for installation, and when they're installed you put the heatsink back on. You will need some back spacing behind your headlight assembly to make sure this fits, because as you can tell, normal light bulbs, they end about here, they just have a plug sticking directly out, but here you have the whole threaded assembly here and the heatsink which comes on top. But you know what, I'm actually going to measure that for you guys. But first I have to remove my H4 bulbs from my car before I can do that. And I believe I see what looks like thermal compound, which likely helps the heat transfer from the bulb to the heatsink, which is very good. So you can tell just by the attention to detail that this is a high quality product. I really hope that they don't make any glare, which, like I said, we will be testing. And if they don't make any glare, that's really what I'm looking for. I want a brighter bulb that doesn't throw any glare, that won't blind oncoming drivers. But so far, this seems like a very high quality bulb. So I'm going to screw that in a little bit for now. And I'm not going to show the installation because it's going to be very different on each car. However, I will do some comparisons with only one installed in the halogen and the other, so you can tell. And I'm also going to take some pictures and do before and after comparisons.
For the following tests, I took some pictures from inside the car while keeping all the settings on my camera constant. I will show these settings on the screen. I will also show on top of the screen some dots. Yellow dot is for halogen, blue dot is for LED. These pictures were also pretty much taken back to back, minus the time it took me to install the LEDs, so the ambient lighting should be pretty much constant. This should give us a good comparison of the different bulbs. In the first comparison, let's look at the low beams with only the left bulb as LED. Immediately you can tell that these bulbs are brighter. Everything near to the car is illuminated better. It also reaches a little bit wider, as you can see here, which is not ideal from the perspective of oncoming drivers. However, given that there does not seem to be any more glare in the distance, I think this is a pass. Now, let's take a look at the high beams with only the left bulb as LED. Basically, not much has changed apart from the LED being slightly brighter. The H4 pattern is not symmetrical, we will get a better improvement from the right LED. In this comparison, we will look at both halogen low beams versus both LED low beams. Unfortunately, the picture is a little blurry. What I really like is the additional illumination you get on the far right side. That's very nice to see, as in the civilized world, that's where all the street signs are going to be. You will get better visibility on them even on your low beams. Finally, we come to the halogen high beam versus LED high beam comparison. We can see everything is brighter overall, but also the foreground is filled in better too. The big difference is on the right side. These bulbs put out more light out to the side. Again, this is very important as you will have a better chance at seeing any wildlife or whatever that might jump out onto the road in front of you.
Okay, so I'm standing here in front of the car, and on the right, the low beams are at. Actually, I'm going to raise my camera a little bit to be at eye level, and just like that, obviously it seems brighter, but it does not seem to be throwing up more glare than the one on the left. And I mean, this is really subjective. Standing here, of course it is brighter, but I'm not getting direct glare from the lens. Let me try raising the shutter speed somewhat. So now I have the shutter speed quite high, and as you can probably tell, there's a tiny little bit more glare from the LED headlight. However, that's probably due simply to the fact that it's brighter, but the beam pattern itself seems to be pretty good, so I think I'm gonna be happy with that. Okay, I wanted to get a little comparison shot here of a halogen bulb next to the LED one, so let's take a closer look at that. I have both of them lined up to about the same spot, as you can see, and see here what really sticks out actually is the heat sink, but I'm actually pretty surprised it's not as bad as I thought. You know, I thought there would be from the packaging it seemed a lot bigger, but that's actually kind of encouraging. This might fit in tighter spaces, but what really concerns me is the cable here. It's really too bad it does not come out at a right angle, but that obviously is not possible with this heatsink design. But as you can tell, you don't need that much extra room behind the housing for it to fit. So I think the little like manual, the little owner's manual says 60 to 70 millimeters. Okay, so the manual says you need, let's zoom in on that, so 70 millimeters of space behind the headlight fixture, and now the fixture has a diameter of 60 millimeters. Yeah, that makes more sense. So yeah, it's actually not that bad. This might fit in a lot of headlights, but of course, like I said, the worry is this little cable sticking out here, but I mean, it's fairly bendable, but like I wouldn't go much more than that. Like any more than that feels like I'm forcing the cable, so that's probably the maximum you can press on it. So that is something to consider. But one thing that is worth mentioning though is, in case you have trouble with the little module, I had a little problem with mine. The high beam would just cut out randomly, but I just unplugged it, plugged it back in, and it started working. So just make sure that everything's seated nice and tight before you test it out. Otherwise, you might think that something's broken. But yeah, like I said, just unplugging it and plugging it back in fixed the problem. Okay, so now the big question is, are the control boxes for the LED lights, are they gonna compensate for current chopped daytime running lights?
Before you judge, LED lights basically always flicker on camera, but that's a property of the camera, not the bulbs. I stepped out and adjusted the camera settings to reflect what I was seeing, and to my surprise, they didn't flicker. I also flipped between the high beams and the daytime running lights so you can see the difference.
Alright, well, the verdict is in, and I gotta say, I'm very impressed with these bulbs. These are the first LED bulbs I've seen that don't suck. So, they're actually very, very good. I'm very surprised. The beam pattern is good, which is very important. It doesn't scatter light around randomly. It only puts it exactly where you need it to be. They do have a little bit more glare, but not tragically more, right? I mean, that's probably on account of them being brighter than halogen bulbs rather than an inherent design flaw, which just sort of scatters light around everywhere. So yeah, very, very impressed. Hopefully they'll be very long lasting, but because it's Philips, I don't doubt it. The heat sinks seem pretty sturdy, so the fact that they also have thermal compound between the threads and the heatsink, that's excellent. That's going to really allow the heat to transfer away from the chips into the heatsink and out into the air. I'm also impressed by the little control box. At first I thought it was just going to be like a current limiting resistor to protect the diodes in case of overvoltage, but turns out it can actually correct for daytime running lights as well, because daytime running lights, they're not just like pass through a resistor, for example. They're actually the current is chopped, so it's on off a certain period of time, and this on off cycle repeats very quickly, and then you get less bright high beams, and that's how daytime running lights work. A lot of LED bulbs struggle with that, and you know, this on off cycle, it's fine for halogens because the filament stays hot, so it still glows. It's just that it doesn't glow as hard, or it doesn't glow as hot rather, because the filament's not receiving as much power. But a lot of LEDs struggle with that, and I'm very happy to see that this one doesn't. So yeah, that's super, super great. And again, overall impressed. I mean, the quality of the lights is very high, so I don't doubt that these will last a very long time, and I absolutely would recommend these to anybody looking to upgrade their headlights. Of course, these aren't going to be legal on the roads everywhere, so you really have to check with your jurisdiction to see if you can run these on the streets. That is a disclaimer they put on the box, but it is also true. However, I don't think you'd have any problems, given that they don't give off too much glare. It's way better than a lot of people that put HIDs in halogen housings. Like, that's terrible. That puts light all over the place. But these, very, very focused, and you can tell that from the pictures.